What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Buckeye Film Breakdown. As always, I'm Jeremy. Opposite side of the screen, we got Coach Slate. Wanted to hop on here, give you guys some odds and ends. There's obviously not a ton of news going on right now for the Buckeyes themselves. A lot of college football topics to discuss. We wanted to discuss the Natty. We wanted to discuss the latest Buckeye portal pickup and kind of just recap the season that was. Obviously, it ended not the way we wanted it to, but there were still some good things to come out of it. As always, hop over to Buckeye Film Breakdown, tap in, subscribe to the Substack, hop in our chat, read our newsletters. Slate's got some film room stuff coming out for you guys to watch, and let's get into it. Monday night, the Natty, Miami, Indiana. The feel good story comes true. The the Canes, fall to the Hoosiers, and it's rare for a game to live up to the hype, but this one did.
Yeah, what a game, man. I think I think it was the two best teams in the country. I think, both defenses played well. I think Fernando Mendoza did not have, the best game, but man, he had some moments. That run on that touchdown was just fantastic. I think that it just embodied the type of player that he
Yeah,
is. But it was awesome to see the Indiana fans, and as much as it pains me to see, their excitement, I think it's so cool. I forget what I was listening to. It might have been something on ESPN today, but if you're, North Carolina or Wake Forest or any other these random schools, like this can be you. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like it can be you. Like if you recruit, you get the right coach in there, like this can be you. And so that was one of the things I just kept thinking about. And then the other thing too, man, it was just really cool to see Miami football back like in a prominent spotlight. Like, there was a picture that came out and that had all the legends from the U and Ray Lewis out there talking to Carson Beck, and I'm like, "Man," like, that the legacy that those guys had, Bernie Kosar's out there looking healthy, like, getting back, from his, liver transplant, like, it was just really cool to see all that stuff, man, so it did live up to the hype, and I was glad to see a good game. I was hoping it wasn't gonna be a blowout. And then for me personally, some family ties. My mom's from Indiana. She grew up a Hoosier fan. My grandfather who passed away a few years ago, he was diehard Hoosier fan. So I know he's up and next to the big man, smiling. He's probably living it up, man. Just excited that the Hoosiers got it done, man. So it was a fun game to watch, and I'm glad it lived up to the hype, like you said.
It's just really crazy to see the Ray Lewises and the Michael Irvins. Like, where were those dudes when Miami sucked, though?
Yeah.
That's the thing that, to me, like, it's no secret my feelings for the Miami program, but at the end of the day, Miami was a blue blood at one point.
Yeah.
And to see that program fall and all of those dudes essentially abandon it until they become good again, that stings because I don't think you would ever see that at Ohio State. I don't think you would ever see that at Alabama, places like that. But yeah, I mean Mendoza, not his best game, but his receivers had some drops that didn't help him.
Yeah.
I think the nerves got to some of those guys, but when it mattered, he got there. He made his play, and I mean, like he said in the post game on ESPN, he's like, "I bet on myself," you know, and Signetti to go for it there,
Yeah.
and say we're going to ice this game and make it even harder for you to win was huge. And I know a lot of people don't like Signetti, and he's a walking cliche machine a lot of times. But man, him and Mendoza might be the most likable underdog pair we've ever seen. Um, I don't even know. I mean, Signetti came in, he talked his mess, but he backed it up.
Yeah, it's hard not to like Coach Signetti. I mean,
Yeah,
he's very quirky. When he first came in, it was like, the Google me stuff, and
yeah,
that kind of rubbed you the wrong way. But it's easy to do that and find lightning in the bottle for 1 year. but then to come back to and do it with a completely different roster. I don't want to say completely different, but with some new faces, a new
Yeah.
quarterback, and some unknown guys. And then to hear him talk about his methodology, his philosophy, like I want guys that are going to come in here and know that they have a role, not guys that are coming in here that want to get paid. That is just a byproduct of your success on the field. And just to hear him talk about that and then to see the guys like live it out on the field, like that is pretty cool. That's really cool to like see. And you see that. I mean, it's plain as day that the guys buy into it. I mean, they buy into that. They don't buy into the stars. They buy into that philosophy, and the coaches buy into it as well. I mean, Shanahan and Haynes, and this could all change and going into this offseason for them. They are going to field calls from other schools. There are going to be so many people that are going to throw so much money at them to take jobs elsewhere. And I know Mark Cuban's not going to let that happen, but they are fully invested in being at Indiana. And that is
Mhm.
hard to find. And we're seeing that with Ohio State right now, what Coach Day is dealing with. It is hard to find guys that are fully invested in rising up with Coach Signetti. I mean, these are guys that came with him from JMU. Like they are fully bought into him, man. And so as much as, we didn't like Coach Signetti when he first got here, like the utmost respect for that man now,
Oh yeah.
because he got it out of the mud, man. He truly rose up from, the Division 2 level and at Elon, and then, JMU just kept rising up. And it's so cool to see those guys like go through that grind. Another thing that people don't remember as well, I often forget about, the guy on the other sideline is Mario Cristobal. Mario Cristobal got fired from his first head coaching job.
Hmm.
Like that's what people forget. And as somebody who, has had a head coaching job, kind of been told like, hey man, it might be time for you to step away from this job and resigned, and has aspirations of potentially being a head coach down the road. Like that gives guys like me and other people who are in that similar situation like hope. Like, listen, man, like just because you didn't succeed your first time through doesn't mean that's always going to be your story. And so like shout out to Coach Cristobal for like battling through that, because like that is not an easy thing to do. And so to see two guys just really work their way up and out of the trenches, like that is a really cool story to see, man. So I have a lot of respect for both of those coaches because they truly got it out of the mud, man. They really had to work to be where they're at.
Yeah, I kind of grew to like Cristobal. During the playoff run, he's very brief. He's very, but what I really like about him is how honest he is in those halftime interviews, which are a terrible spot to be in. You're trying to go get to your team, make the adjustments you need to make to win a football game, and you got a microphone shoved in your face.
Yeah.
Um, what I obviously didn't like is, I think Miami definitely played a little dirty at times on Monday. Um, I understand hitting Mendoza when he's carrying out a fake. You are fair game when you are running a fake. But if you're trying to hit him because you think he's got the ball, you're hitting him in the chest. You're not uppercutting him with your helmet right underneath the chin. And that was the second. Signetti thought there were three on that drive. I know of another one. He threw it and got drilled in the back. I mean, just lit up and no flag. But they did let him play that night for the most part. But until Miami, as I put it Monday night, talking to a couple people, Miami's gonna Miami. Until they're not doing that kind of thing, I don't know that I can ever wish them success.
Yeah, and that's tough. I think I it's tough to see because there's a part of you that as a defensive coach, and I would never wish like Mendoza to get injured or anything like that. You don't
Right.
want that. But there is a part of you that kind of wants to send a message like, hey man, you're like you're
Sure.
you're you're playing the Miami Hurricanes. Like
Yeah.
this is not Ohio State. This isn't, any team that you played this year. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna feel us. And so I get that side of it, but then there's a line that is there. And
Yeah.
like I felt like that hit kind of crossed it because it was it was like 2, 3, 4 steps too late. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, and so I felt like they crossed that. The one thing I will give the refs credit, as a defensive backs coach, as a defensive coordinator, I love when they let the receivers and the DBs hand
Mhm.
fight. I love when they
Yeah.
let them play because the receivers get away with it all the time,
Yep.
and the DBs always get called for it. And oftentimes it's the receivers who are initiating the contact. And so I loved seeing that. Don't always call those ticky tack ones. If the DB is really holding you, heck yeah, call that. But like,
Right.
when you're fighting for a position, like let them play through that. And I thought the refs did a really good job of holding on to those flags and kind of letting them work through that. And I love seeing when refs do that, man. So I thought it was okay, officiated game. But yeah, Miami did do some things that I was like, man, like I don't think Coach Chris that one. I don't think that's really what he wanted, to see.
Right.
But I felt like Miami, I mean, again, you got to remember who's there. Remember the era of guys that are there. You got Ray
Yeah.
Lewis, you got Michael Irvin, you got all these legends. That's the way that they played.
It is.
That was the message that they had to send, that they wanted to send. So
Yep.
you got to think, I got all these OGs here. Now I gotta be like them. I gotta play like them. And so I'm sure they were just amped up and prisoner of the moment. But a couple of those shots were definitely dirty.
Yeah, without a doubt. And the last thing, as far as the game goes, it's not often that you get this kind of game to where both teams really did what they do well, and that was reflected on the scoreboard. The Miami front four wreaked havoc,
Oh
but
yeah.
the Indiana run game made plays when it mattered. The Miami run game made plays when it mattered. Mendoza made, we saw back shoulder fades to Charlie Becker in the fourth quarter, just like we've talked about. So it was a really good game. I mean, obviously, I was pulling for Indiana mostly because of my disdain for Miami, but to not truly have a horse in the race, it was just an entertaining game to watch. To circle it to the Buckeyes, the game stealing interception from everybody's favorite seventh or eighth or ninth year senior,
Yeah.
Carson Beck, was the nephew of Glenn Sharp, who obviously was the guy guarding Chris Gamble in the Fiesta Bowl. So the Sharp family just likes to cost Miami championships, I guess.
It's pretty
Um,
crazy.
yeah,
That's a crazy connection.
isn't it though? It really is. Um, Speaking of Miami, though, as kind of a state of college football topic. We've talked about the transfer portal, we've talked about NIL and all that comes with it. The portal closed on Friday, as we've discussed in opening drives, we've discussed on here. And on the very last day, Duke Blue Devil quarterback Darian Mensah goes into the portal after, signing a new deal with Duke. And it comes out pretty quick, he's tied to Miami. So Duke entered him into the portal as they were supposed to, and then turns around and sues him. And they were granted a TRO today, so that's a temporary restraining order, um, basically saying he's not allowed to enroll at another institution. Him or his representation are not allowed to license his NIL to anybody else. There's like 3 or 4 other bulleted points, and essentially the way it boils down is even if he goes to another school, um, he is supposed to pay Duke whatever they want to. I'm very interested to see how this comes out, and how it turns out in the courtroom.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. But if we want to see, change, and we want to see things get corrected when it comes to NIL, when it comes to the transfer portal, all this stuff, these are the type of things that these institutions are going to have to do.
Yep.
Like you were the one that signed this, whatever agreement, you better stick to it. Like that is one thing. You are now a professional athlete. Like once you sign that, I know it's college and I know you're still technically an amateur, but you are now treated like a pro. Once you sign this agreement, you are
Yep.
getting paid for your service. So you have contractual obligations now. And so like these are things that I hope these agents are making their athletes privy of,
Right.
because these are the type of things that are going to happen. And there's going to be so many things that are going to end up happening in the future where some of these schools are going to be like, man, you know what? I'm not dealing with these type of headaches anymore. Like, these guys going to be in portal limbo
Yep.
and potentially lose a year of eligibility. And then the NCAA is going to have to be like, okay, all right, this is it. This is where we have to step in and
Yep.
actually do something. And so I know it sucks for him, because I never want to see a kid lose, out on anything, potentially. But at the same time, like, these are the type of things that need to happen in order for us to see the change that we need to see, when it comes to NIL, because obviously it's still the wild, wild west, and you sign an agreement, you need to honor that. But you know, Miami comes calling. I get that they were just in the national championship, so I get that they're probably offering him a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, until they label these guys employees so that there can be a collective bargaining agreement, there's always going to be this type of stuff.
Yeah,
And I know a lot of people are opposed to that because it's student athletes, it's college, but we're past that. At the end of the day, it's minor leagues, which is fine. You're still getting an education because at the end of the day, how many of these guys are going to make it to the league? I mean, there's 7 rounds in the draft, not 17 like there used to be.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, I think this is either the first step to the wild, wild west furthering itself or to reeling some of this stuff in.
yeah,
So that'll be interesting to see. Um, Buckeyes get a boom today. Not a massive one. Another punter. You only had Joe McGuire on the roster right now. Houston Christian and Cincinnati, um, by way of Perrysburg, Ohio. Brady Young. Another guy, though, sixth year senior.
yeah.
Obviously, as a punter, it's not as big of a deal, but from a leadership standpoint and that type of thing, can't go wrong.
No, and with my ties to Finley and having coached there for a while, it's hard for me to root for anything that's related to Perrysburg. But I do like seeing Ohio guys come back home. And it's good to get, Joe McGuire some competition.
Yep.
You can't go into the season with just one punter and one kicker.
No.
And so they're definitely going to add another kicker, as well. But it's good to see, an Ohio kid come back home. Had some decent stats. He's very similar to Joe as far as his stats are concerned. He did have a long punt of like 66 yards, so he's definitely got a leg on him. And so I think it will be good to get some competition. Joe, people will complain about him, but the one thing about Joe is he's pretty consistent. And there was a punt that was really, really good for us in, the Miami game, and it got, we had a flag, and then the next punt wasn't as good, and it cost us
No.
20 yards of field position. So,
Yep.
like, little things go into all of this when it comes to special
Oh,
teams,
yeah.
but special teams cannot be overlooked. So this is a
No.
good pickup by Gunner, Coach Gunner, and Coach Keys. And I'll be excited to see who the next kicker is we pick up as well, because we got to get some more competition for Hawkins as well.
Yeah, it still just makes me sad that it didn't work out with Nick McClarty.
Yeah,
Uh, the dude's going to go to Arizona State and probably average 80 yards a punt. Uh,
and live his best
but,
life.
oh, yeah, without a doubt. Um, so, to kind of wrap up the season, obviously we had national championship aspirations, but I don't know that anybody truly envisioned 15 or 16-0. First year quarterback, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, who obviously that turned out to be a slam dunk, a grand slam, whatever analogy you want to use. Um, but we just kind of wanted to throw, I guess some last thoughts out on the season that was, because Big Ten schedule gets released next week. So it's already time to start looking toward next year. 2027 recruiting, we're in a dead period, or we're getting ready to enter a dead period. So, that will be quiet for a minute. But I guess one of the things I always like to look back on is a player who surprised you. Be it good, bad, ugly, be it, you had zero expectations and they came out and killed it. Um, I'm going to let you go first because obviously, to me, there's two that stand out the most, but we'll see which one you go with.
Yeah, I think the obvious one is Arvell Reese. The to see the player that he turned out to be. We knew that he was an athletic freak, a physical specimen. We
Yeah.
knew that he had all the traits to be the player that he turned out to be. But to be that player starting out in the Texas game, it was I just didn't expect it to happen that fast. So I think the obvious one is Arvell Reese. But for me, I'm going to go, and I know there's a lot of scrutiny on the offensive line. Spoiler alert: the offensive line was really not as bad as people think. I think Indiana's front and Miami's front was just really, really good, as shown in the national championship game. But a guy that surprised me, and I saw it up close and personal in spring ball, and I saw something then when he was battling with CJ Hicks all the time, and we talked about it when we were the coach in the couch potato, is Philip Daniels. Philip Daniels, I did not expect him to be a starter. I
Right.
expected him to just be a rotational guy, maybe the sixth lineman. But I remember watching him in spring practice, and he just was nasty. And he was like looking for fights. And he was just this dog. And it was like something that I felt like the offensive line had kind of been missing for a while. And I was like,
Hmm.
man, he's either going to start at guard or he's going to start at tackle. And I just remember watching him and CJ Hicks go at it in practice all the time. And then to see him start the entire season and to play solid, up until
Yeah.
the last couple games of the year, like that was a real shock for me. I didn't expect him to be a guy for us right away. And I think, another year with Coach Mick, like I think he's going to be a really good player for us next year, especially if we're able to bump him down inside and have, Sarahveld as the tackle. I think he's going to be a really good player for us. So that's going to be my surprise of the year, was Philip Daniels. I didn't expect him to be, a starter for us as fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, Arvel, obviously the easy choice. I'm going to go with the second easy choice just because there were dudes in front of him. And it's, don't get me wrong, he still has a lot to work on. But I think you got to go with Bo Jackson and what
Oh, for
he
sure.
brought to the team. Coming into the season, we all thought, okay, James Peoples is going to start. CJ Donaldson is going to be the second guy, be the red zone guy. And then you might see Bo Jackson. And you can honestly say Isaiah West could fall as a surprise because he
Yeah.
showed a lot of potential. And, that's coming off of an injury.
Yep.
But to have 1,000-yard back in an offense that likes to toss the rock around, let alone that back be a freshman. And now, Bo does need to work on some stuff. I would like to see him get a little bit faster. I would like to see him hit that second level better. But he's a freshman.
Yep.
Like we saw with Indiana and to some extent Miami, Akeem Mesidor is like 30, but Bo Jackson's 18. He's not developed all the way yet physically.
Yeah.
So some of that will come with that development, but definitely a very pleasant surprise with Bo Jackson.
Yeah, I did not expect him to be the bell cow for us
Yeah,
that soon. I did, I was a big CJ Donaldson fan. I thought he could be like that Carlos Hyde for us.
yeah,
And then I had high expectations for James Peoples as well. But Bo Jackson, the way that he developed, and he was just a big play guy when he first got in. Like it was just like,
yeah,
okay, he's getting like 7, 8, 9 yards every time he touches it, and then boom, it's a big play. But then once he became the guy, like you said, like, all right, when you get to that second level, you got to make that guy miss. There were just
yep,
some times where he could have worked on that a little bit more. But I think as he develops, like obviously he had 1,000 yards. I think next year is going to be a huge year for him, and Isaiah West as well. But yeah, Bo Jackson was definitely a surprise. I knew he would be good for us. I didn't expect him to be good this fast.
yeah. And I think you may see Isaiah West take a bigger step next year too. I mean, because now he's legitimately going to be the number two. You ran four guys a game. I think Coach Day would probably prefer to keep that at 3, but we'll see what happens. Obviously the I'm drawing a blank on his name, the kid from Florida that's coming in.
Jacoby
Um,
Jackson.
yeah, the more I watch him, talk about a dude that could be a Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, he's,
I
he's a
mean,
big dude. Shifty, he's big,
yeah,
solid.
pretty excited for him. Um, you know, I think like favorite game of the year. Given the fact that the playoff run ended short, I think we both would be in unison there. So obviously, it's always good to beat the team up north, but I do think to touch on that though, a hot debate after last season was, well, you didn't beat Michigan. What's better, beating Michigan or winning a natty? I really think, a lot of people realized after the Miami loss that not winning the natty sucks worse than losing to Michigan.
Yeah, yeah, man. Listen, I love beating Michigan. I think it is awesome, and it was so great to right that ship this year. It was great to see Julian Sayin, play great and have a really solid game. It was so nice to see Jeremiah Smith be able to back up, pretty much his guarantee that he made in the
Yep.
offseason. Like it was great to see Bo Jackson make some guys miss and have some big plays. The defense played well. Like it was great to see the guy from Barstool have to eat his own. Dave Portnoy have to eat
Oh
his
yeah.
words, man. Like those are things that are great. But beating Notre Dame last year in that national championship, like I quickly forgot about that Michigan game.
Yeah.
Like it was null and void. And so I hope people understand. Like yes, we always want to beat our rival, but at the end of the year, let's say had Miami won the national championship, do you think Miami's going to give two you know whats that they lost to SMU and that they
Right.
got beat by Louisville? Like nobody cares about that. Nobody's going to care. And so that is one of the things that we have to understand. Like, yeah, I want to beat Michigan every single year and I want to curb stomp them all the time. But I want a national championship. I want a Big Ten championship. I want those things consistently every single year. And so those are what really matter at the end of the season. So, yes, it was great to right the ship. But man, being at 12-0 at the end of the season, yeah, you got these expectations. And to kind of fall short of that, it did suck. But it still feels good to beat Michigan though. I can't take that away from
Oh,
the
without
guys.
doubt. I mean, as college football becomes more like the NFL with the longer schedule, do you think that the years that the Steelers won the Super Bowl, if they lost one of the games to the Browns, they cared?
No,
Like,
no,
that's the way you have to look at it. College football has evolved. And and it has evolved. It's not just a change. I mean, it really has evolved for the better. We're seeing more parity. I mean, for God's sake, Indiana just won the Natty. I mean, it doesn't get
no.
more parity wise than that. I mean, who would have thunk it, man? I mean, this 30 for 30 is going to be insane. It just sucks they can't call it Hoosiers. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
but that kind of ties up this past season. Obviously, as we continue to evolve ourselves, we're going to keep pumping out different types of content for you guys. Once we have an offensive coordinator, we're going to look at some film, see what they like to do, whoever it may be. Um, and I don't even know that Ryan Day is in a hurry. That's the thing there. So that's been very, very tight. But we appreciate the love. We hit 500 subscribers on YouTube today. Uh, but obviously for the full experience, like we said, tap into the Buckeye-Film-Breakdown.com. There's 3 different subscription methods on Substack. Join the community. And that's really what it is. It is a community. We're in there chatting every day, especially when stuff happens. And we look forward to continuing to build it with you guys because at the end of the day, it's not a community without you. And with that, we will see you guys later on this week.